because they know what I went been through, you know, so hard time, bro. I'm fighting every single day for to be here, but I will not stop.
I just wanted to come out and show myself, be myself, put all that other stuff to the side and just come out and show me. Show this is me. This is what y'all get when y'all see me.
On August 8th, a crucial fight takes place for the UFC's light heavyweight division. Former title challenger Thiago Santos takes on one of the most exciting prospects in the division, Jamahal "Sweet Dreams" Hill. Both men are great strikers, and we expect a great stand-up battle between them. They both possess tremendous knockout power, and Hill's style might just be what Santos needs to get out of this run of boring fights.
Crute, you get the... You got it! Do it! Jamahal Hill!
This is definitely a matchup to look forward to, so without further ado, we here at Athlete Central are here to tell you everything you need to know in this Ultimate Fight Breakdown. Recent fights. Let's start off with the UFC vet Thiago Santos, who has been on a bit of a rough patch lately, being 1-4 in his last 5 fights. After a very close split decision loss to Jon Jones, he had an exciting back-and-forth battle with Glover Teixeira.
Teixeira has the body locked and now a takedown.
But ended up losing via rear naked choke in the 3rd round.
Santos would appear to be fatigued, and Teixeira might be under the chin here. There it is! Glover Teixeira!
His last 3 fights have been nothing short of a snooze fest. He faced Alexander Rakic at the start of 2021 in a fight that was expected to move the winner closer to a title shot, but all it did was lower the stock of both fighters. The fight was mainly a stand-up affair, but neither fighter landed anything with real purpose. Rakic was the more effective fighter in the first 2 rounds, working the body and legs, however with limited strikes to the head. Santos took the 3rd round for sure, landing 23 strikes to Rakic's 7, but it wasn't enough to win him the decision. His next fight was against compatriot Johnny Walker, a 5-round fight that somehow had less than 100 strikes landed in total. Yeah, it was really that bad. Santos only landed 3 strikes in the first round, and understandably, Walker won that round, despite not much going on. Then for the rest of the fight, the fighters were very close in terms of the striking numbers, with both landing 8 to 11 strikes per round. Santos ended up winning rounds 2, 3, and 5, and taking home the unanimous decision victory. His last fight was against Russian prospect Magomed Ankalaev, and yet again it was an uneventful affair. Ankalaev won 4 out of the first 5 rounds, mainly outstriking Santos and having over 2.5 minutes of control time in the 5th round. Santos had the brightest moment of the fight though, and it was a knockdown in the 2nd round. Magomed recovered from it well and won a decisive decision victory. Moving on to Hill, who was on a 9-fight unbeaten run, 3 fights deep in his UFC career when he suffered his first loss against Scottish grappler BJJ whiz Paul Craig. Hill didn't have a lot of success against the Scot, only landing 1 significant strike in the 2 minutes of action. Craig managed to lock an armbar that was extremely tight. Hill showed some real heart and didn't tap, but Craig ended up breaking his arm with the submission, and the ref had no choice but to put a stop to the fight.
That's a wrap. Jamal's out. Is he out?
Hill's next fight was against Jimmy Crute, and this one didn't last long either, but this time it was in his favor. The fighters had a stand-up start to the fight, and Hill managed to land an amazing knockout blow 48 seconds in. A beautiful right hook that knocked the Aussie out. Hill was back on the right track and showed that he has the ability to deal with ranked fighters. His last fight was against Johnny Walker, who faced him right after his loss to Thiago Santos. Safe to say, this fight was a lot more entertaining than Walker's bout with Santos. Hill was very patient and managed to land an overhand right that gave us a very interesting knockout. Walker had a delayed reaction and eventually fell down a few seconds after the punch connected, giving Hill a knockout victory. Attributes. This fight could really be a passing of the torch moment, as it seems like Santos has become sort of a gatekeeper for the light heavyweight division, with fights against Walker, Ankalaev, and now Hill, all young fighters making their way up to the rankings. Now this is due to his recent performances and also his age. Thiago is 38 years old, in the twilight of his career, while Hill just turned 31, primed and ready for the best years of his career. In terms of anthropometry, Hill is the bigger man, which is logical since Santos used to fight in the middleweight division. Jamahal is 6 feet 4 inches, 2 inches taller than Santos, who is 6 feet 2 inches. Hill also has a 3-inch reach advantage, 79 inches compared to Thiago's 76. Striking. We want to preface this section by saying that Santos has faced a much higher level of competition. So let's get into the statistics. Both fighters are primarily strikers, so we expect some good striking stats from them. When it comes to volume, Hill is superior, and it isn't even close. The American lands 7.06 significant strikes per minute, which is almost double the amount that Santos lands at 3.77. Jamahal also has a higher striking accuracy, up at 51%, 4% higher than Thiago's 47%. When it comes to striking defense, it is a very different story. Thiago is better at defending his opponent's offense. The Brazilian only absorbs 2.37 significant strikes per minute, while Hill is up at 3.71. Of course, this could be due to Thiago's recent uneventful fights where neither fighter landed many strikes of any significance. This is disproven by his defense rate though, as Santos defends 55% of strikes, 10% higher than Hill's 45%. Now let's look at their knockout power. 6 of Hill's victories have come via KO/TKO, with 3 of them coming in the UFC. Santos, on the other hand, has finished 15 of his 22 victories by knockout, and an astounding 11 of them have come in the UFC. His recent uneventful fights does not mean that his power has faded, because he has hurt both Ankalaev and Glover Teixeira in the last 5 fights. Grappling. Let's get into the grappling stats, and well, let's be honest, neither fighter is very prominent grappler, so we don't expect amazing stats here. In fact, Hill hasn't attempted a single takedown throughout his time in the UFC. Santos averages 0.54 takedowns per 15 minutes with a relatively low 36% accuracy. The fighters have similar takedown defense. Santos defends 65% of attempts while Hill defends 60%, but it's not like either fighter is going to need their takedown defense in this matchup. So now let's move on to the submissions, where Hill has an attempted one in the UFC, while Santos only attempts 0.1 per 15 minutes. Thiago has 1 rear naked choke finish prior to the UFC, and Hill has never won via sub in his entire career. Prediction? So this fight is a tough one to predict. Hill hasn't had a boring fight in the UFC, it's always been action-packed and full of impressive striking. But Santos has had a few uneventful fights in a row. One thing we can be sure about is that this fight will mostly take place on the feet. Santos might try to engage on the ground if he sees Hill getting the better of him in the stand-up, but the most likely outcome is for the fight to be contested on the feet. Both men are powerful, so the threat of a knockout is ever present. Santos is really good at utilizing his kicking arsenal, which is what we saw in the fight against John Jones, that is, leg kicks and body kicks are amazing. Hill might be better at using his hands though, so Santos has to make sure that he uses his kicks correctly to overcome Jamal's reach advantage. One thing that could be a concern is that we have seen in Hill's previous fights that he can be patient and land the less and search for the knockout. This type of style against the cautious Santos may lead to a stalemate and another uneventful fight. However, previously against the likes of Ovince St. Preux and Darko Stosic, Hill has had an incredible output. He's managed to outstrike his opponents and make it an entertaining fight at the same time. One thing to take into consideration is the fact that Santos has previously competed in 5-round fights, and Hill is relatively inexperienced in that field. So we'll see how his cardio holds up in the main event. The matchup is very important to the light heavyweight division because if Hill wins, 205 has a new player in town, a new contender that could potentially challenge for the title with 1 or 2 more victories. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Who would you guys put your money on? Drop your fight predictions in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to never miss an Athlete Central video. Until next time.